Hello everyone, I want to welcome you to our lecture series. Today we want to look at sociology with a specific focus on the meaning of sociology as well as the scope of sociology. When we talk about the scope, we basically imply the subject matter of sociology or some of the issues that the discipline of sociology covers. Sociology is a wide discipline, and therefore the issues that we are going to discuss under the scope of sociology may not cover the entire field of sociology, but some of the key areas that are covered in sociology. So I want to welcome you to this discussion, and I want you to pay keen attention, listen carefully, and note down any issue that may not be clear so that you can raise it for further discussion at appropriate time. What is sociology? Sociology as a discipline has been defined differently, and I want us to look at some of the definitions that have been put forward by scholars in the attempt to explain what is meant by sociology. Sociology is understood as the systematic study of society, including patterns of social relationships, social interactions, as well as culture. The word systematic is necessary because the study of sociology requires certain procedures that have to be followed. And therefore, we cannot understand society without moving sequentially in our effort to understand what is going on there. Again, when you look at this definition, it is basically telling us that the study of society can be divided into three broader areas. That is, patterns of social relationships, social interactions, as well as culture. These issues, we are still going to deal with them in the course of our coverage of this particular course. I noted earlier that we call it systematic because sociologists must apply both theoretical perspectives and research methods in the examination of social behavior. In other words, there is what we know about society based on what we see or based on what we experience as members of society, and which does not require research. That is what we call the theoretical perspective. But again, there are those things that are hidden, so that what we see might not tell it all about what exactly exists in that particular society. For that matter, therefore, research becomes necessary so that issues that are hidden can be unveiled and brought to the fore for better understanding of a particular society. Again, sociology is concerned with the way individuals interact as members of a group and institutions, both individually and collectively, and how these interactions are connected to the larger culture and social structure of a society. So that when we talk about sociology, we are basically concerned about the place of individuals in society, how the behavior of the individual affects members of the group, such as families, peers, and others, and also how the behavior of members of that group affect the behavior of that particular individual. The discipline of sociology is divided into several branches, and these are what we call the scope. Some of them include rural sociology, social institutions, social research methods, urban sociology, collective behavior and group dynamics, industrial sociology, ecological sociology, among others. Like I stated earlier, sociology covers a wide range of issues that exist in society. And therefore, what I've mentioned here, and again, what we are going to subsequently discuss, are just but a fraction of what the entire scope of sociology is. So what we have here is simply for guidance in terms of what the subject matter of sociology entails. One of the areas that is studied widely in sociology is what we call rural sociology. Rural sociology is a branch of sociology that is concerned with the study of life in rural environment, and also it tends or strives to study rural communities with the purpose of discovering conditions and tendencies that exist in those communities for purposes of formulating principles that can be used to advance such societies. It's a branch that studies man in the context of rural establishment, and in doing so, it looks at issues such as rural social structure, which include things like the family, clan, among others. It looks at rural social institutions, such as marriages. It also looks at rural social problems, some of which may be poverty, illiteracy, and even retrogressive cultural practices, such as early marriages, among others. Again, it also looks at social change. That is, how does a society in rural area change from one state to another, and what are the drivers of change, and what are some of the things that may go against the ability of society to advance. Again, this branch looks at rural development. That is, how do rural communities develop? Rural sociology also examines the significance of rural areas. Indeed, rural areas are quite significant number of areas, including cultural preservation. That is, most of our cultural practices are more embedded in rural areas. Again, rural areas is the main source of our food and other cultural activities. It's also in the rural areas where the bulk of environmental preservation is done. But more importantly, rural areas also host some of the tourism as well as leisure in other institutions, organizations, or places where people can go and engage in leisure activities. For instance, most of the national parks, game reserves, are based in rural areas, and they form the basis of tourist attraction as well as leisure activities. Rural sociology also tries to understand how the rural community meets its needs. These needs could be economic, they could be social, and even political needs. That is, how are rural communities organized in their effort to sustain themselves through provision and access to essential goods and services that they need for survival. So basically, it is a rich area and which forms an important branch of sociology. The other branch of sociology is called social research methods. Social research methods is a branch of sociology that looks into ways on how research in sociology and on social phenomena is done. This area explains candidly on how to conceptualize research problem, formulate research objectives or questions, and also undertake literature review about areas that a researcher may be interested in. The area also offers specific guidelines on how data collection is done under different contexts as well as different social settings. It also emphasizes on some of the ethical issues that researchers must observe when they are developing their research proposal or concept, when they are collecting data, when they're analyzing data, and when they're interpreting data, as well as writing the reports of their studies. So when you talk about social research methods, it's an important area. And basically, the concern is how do we investigate issues, society, in order to deepen our knowledge and understanding about what goes on in society. It is quite an important area that is not only useful to sociology, but also as scholars and students in other disciplines. Social institutions is also another branch of the discipline of sociology. And this branch of sociology focuses on important institutions that exist in society. Traditionally, society has had 5 institutions, namely the family, education, economy, the state, religion, but recent years has also seen the adoption of additional institutions, namely sports, media, and medicine. So when you talk about social institutions as a branch of sociology, it focuses on these institutions. For instance, in the family, it looks at the functions of family and the types of families, as well as some of the emerging forms of families that exist today, and also the challenges and problems that are faced by modern families. This area of sociology also looks at the goals of education and compares schooling from different cultures, and also whether various programs that have been put by government to increase access and quality of education are actually working or not, and what challenges are they likely facing. It also looks at the broader challenges that affect the education sector, both at basic as well as higher education level. It also looks at religion in society in terms of the functions of religion and current affairs or status of religion in the world. Are there problems? Are there issues that are emerging within the religious sector that may, in a way, promote its effectiveness or undermine its effectiveness? The discipline of social institutions as a branch of the branch of sociology, like I noted earlier, also looked at the state. The state in terms of the political parties, interest groups, different political systems, the state, its origin, essential elements, functions, and various types. Social institutions also looks at the economy, the economic system, the role of trade unions and professional bodies in the promotion of trade and economic development. So it's an important area that enhances greatly understanding about how institutions of society are created, how they work, and the various challenges that they face from time to time. The other branch of sociology is called collective behavior and group dynamics. This branch of sociology analyzes the established patterns of thinking and behavior that distinguish one person or one group from another. Again, it looks at the everyday social interaction, networks, and behavior in small groups from a micro perspective. Additionally, it looks at the causes and consequences of deviance, that is, behavior that violates established norms in society and those that generate serious disapproval from members of society. It also identifies different types of social control with emphasis on crime and the justice system. That is, how is society structured to manage cases of deviance and cases where violations of established norms are done by individuals. What happens to them and how are they punished? Again, it's an important area that as we progress in our study of sociology, we will encounter. The other area or branch of sociology is called social inequality. And this area of sociology explores the origin and consequences of social stratification, such as the gap between the rich and the poor, and also the gap of fortunes of the middle working class, as well as the impact of global stratification. The area also examines changing patterns of racial as well as ethnic stratification. It also explores the history of intergroup relationships, such as assimilation, genocide, among others. And in doing so, it helps to explain the current standing of racial and ethnic minorities in the world. Here, there's also the focus on gender stratification, including actual and alleged differences between the sexes, issues of gender inequality, issues or areas of feminism or feminist movements around the world, and the dilemmas that are caused by society expectation for the sexes. All these are studied under social inequality. This branch acknowledges the fact that there are differences at social level, economic level, and cultural level between individuals and between in groups. And how do these differences promote or undermine human progress? How do they affect the way others perceive one group from time to time? That's basically what is explored deeply under social inequality as a branch of the general discipline of sociology. Another area that is studied in the general discipline of sociology is called urban sociology. We understand urban sociology is a branch of sociology that focuses on urban living of people in groups and social relationships in urban social circumstances and situations. It also examines the development of towns, social disorganizations that exist, especially among the urban community, what causes them and their consequences, but it also study the problems of urban life as well as town planning. Urban sociology also looks at class structure and class struggles in urban societies. It also studies such features of social disorganizations such as crimes, juvenile delinquency, prostitution, beggary, unemployment, diseases, populations, slums, gambling dens, recreation centers, bars, as well as club and night life. They are important areas that constitute urban community. Indeed, we started by looking at rural community as a branch, and therefore sometimes it's important to compare and trust what goes on in rural areas and what goes on in urban areas for purposes of trying to understand whether progress or decline in the functioning of social institutions in urban and rural communities is based on the context of living in a particular area or not. It is important for that to come out clearly so that we fully understand the role of social environment in the stability of social institutions as well as societal functioning. Another area that is studied in sociology is called work and occupation, or what we call sociology of work and occupation. Sociology of work is a branch of sociology that studies the social aspects of work. It might also be defined as the study of work-related problems and the pattern of relationships in a workplace. It's understood as an area of general sociology which specializes on work and the work environment, as well as the changing needs of industries and their impacts on society. Sociology of work is considered as a sub-branch of industrial sociology, which utilizes sociological principles in the analysis of economic structures. Indeed, when this area is being studied, we look at several issues, including issues of work commitment, issues of conflicts in the workplace, issues of stress in the workplace, issues of performance, and issues of how relationships, both official and informal, are built and how they may promote or undermine performance of workers. We also look at issues of remuneration, work performance, and also how discipline or disciplinary measures are taken or discharged in the organization. So all these are studied under a branch of sociology that we call sociology of work and occupation. The last area of sociology that we want to look at is called formal organization. It's a branch of sociology that looks into how various institutions in a society are constructed and function to achieve the objectives of those organizations. It examines issues such as decision-making processes in organizations in terms of the types of decisions made or types of decision-making processes, the strengths of each process or each method, as well as their weaknesses. This branch of sociology also examines conflicts and conflict management strategies in organizations and also the impacts on organizational conflicts on the effectiveness of such organizations. In addition, it studies the various forces of change in the organization, issues pertaining to change resistance, and strategies that institutional managers or organizational managers have put in place to overcome resistance to change. It also looks at and interrogates the strengths and weaknesses of various theories of organizations. Indeed, there are various explanations as to the origin and the functions of organizations. So these are grouped together into what we call theories of organization. So when we study formal organizations, we also move further to look at some of the propositions that have been put by different scholars and practitioners as to the origin, the purpose, and the effectiveness of formal organizations that have been established by man to help them achieve certain goals in society. Up to that point, I want us to end our discussion on the meaning and scope of sociology. I want still to emphasize that the issues we have discussed here as part of the scope of sociology is not the entire scope of sociology. Sociology is quite huge, and by the time you undergo training in sociology at undergraduate level, by the time you complete your studies, it is expected of a student to have covered not less than 25 to 30 units of sociology. So it's a rich area that students are required to familiar themselves with. So what we have here is just a snippet of what the field of sociology is and what it entails. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening.